Every time this debate comes up, and I mean every single time, folks pick a side like they're rooting for a football team. You've got the SharkBite crowd saying, push fit changed the game, and the ProPress camp swearing their crimped joints will outlast the house itself. Well, I've used both of these fittings on real jobs, in real houses, with real water pressure behind them. And I'm going to give you the honest answer that nobody selling you fittings at the hardware store is going to tell you. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how each one works on the inside, which one actually holds up longer, and where each fitting truly belongs in your home. And stick around for a bonus tip at the end, because I'll show you the one mistake that causes 90% of push-fit leaks and how to avoid it completely. All right, let's get into this the right way, starting with what's actually going on inside these fittings, because once you understand that, the longevity question answers itself. Most folks pick one or the other based on what their buddy told them, or what they saw on a video. I want you to understand the engineering so you can make your own call. Here's the thing. SharkBite and ProPress are solving the same problem, which is connecting pipes without firing up a torch and sweating copper the old-fashioned way. But they solve it in completely different ways, and those differences matter when you're talking about 20, 30, 40 years down the road. SharkBite is what the industry calls a push-to-connect or push-fit fitting. You literally push the pipe into the fitting, and it grabs on and seals. No tools, no flame, no special equipment. ProPress is a press-fit system made by a company called Viega. You slide the fitting onto the pipe, and then use a battery-powered press tool to mechanically crimp a stainless steel sleeve around the connection. Same goal, very different paths to get there. Both work on copper. Both are approved by code in most jurisdictions. But the details under the hood are where the real story lives. So let me walk you through each one, starting with SharkBite. When you slide a copper pipe into a SharkBite fitting, three things happen at once, and they happen fast. First, a ring of stainless steel teeth inside the fitting bites down into the outside of your pipe. That's where the name comes from. Those teeth grip the pipe and keep it from pulling out. Second, an O-ring, and this is a standard EPDM rubber O-ring, compresses around the pipe and creates your watertight seal. Third, a collet, which is basically a little cage that holds those teeth in position, locks everything together. That's it. No soldering, no flux, no torch. You push, it clicks, water stays in the pipe. Now I'll tell you, there's real genius in the simplicity here. If you've got arthritic hands, bad knees, and you're working in a crawl space where you can barely turn around, let alone light a torch, SharkBite is a genuine lifesaver. I've recommended them to plenty of homeowners over the years for exactly that reason. The fitting works on copper, PEX, and CPVC, which means one fitting covers most residential pipe you'll run into. The manufacturer warranties them for 25 years, and they are code approved for use inside walls. One critical detail, though, when you push the pipe in, it needs to go all the way to the internal stop. On a half-inch fitting, that's about 1 inch of insertion depth. On 3/4 inch, it's about 1 1/8 inches. If you don't seat it fully, you will get a leak. I'll come back to that later because it's the #1 mistake I see. Now let's talk about ProPress, because it's a different animal entirely. A ProPress fitting slides over your copper pipe just like SharkBite does, but that's where the similarity ends. Inside the fitting, there's a specially engineered EPDM sealing element, similar in concept to SharkBite's O-ring, but designed to be permanently compressed. The fitting body itself has a raised bead, a little ridge of stainless steel that runs around the circumference. When you take the press tool, which looks like a big set of powered jaws, and you crimp that fitting, the jaws collapse the stainless steel sleeve down around the pipe, crushing the sealing element into a permanent, locked position. The pipe can't move, the seal can't shift. There are no internal teeth, no collet, and no spring-loaded parts. It's a mechanical crimp, period. The connection is as permanent as a sweated joint without the flame. I first saw ProPress on a hospital job back in the early 2000s. The mechanical contractor brought it in because they couldn't use open flame on an occupied floor. I watched a guy make 40 connections in the time it would have taken me to sweat maybe 15. The joints were clean, consistent, and every single one held on the pressure test. I was impressed, and I don't impress easy. The tool itself is substantial. We're talking a battery-powered press that weighs a few pounds, with interchangeable jaw sets for different pipe sizes, 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch, 1 inch, and up. It's a professional-grade piece of equipment, and it is not cheap. But the connections it makes are rock solid. By the way, if you're finding this advice helpful, do me a small favor and hit that subscribe button down below. I put out new videos like this one every week, walking you through repairs that'll save you a small fortune in plumber bills. Subscribing is free, and it's the best way to make sure you don't miss the next one. All right, let's continue. Now here's the part everybody really wants to know. Which one actually lasts longer? I'm going to give you the honest answer based on 40+ years of working with pipe. And it's not going to be the politically correct answer where I tell you they're both equal and everybody goes home happy. A properly made ProPress joint is the more durable, more reliable, long-term connection. Here's why, and it comes down to simple engineering. In a ProPress fitting, once that crimp is made, nothing moves. There are no moving parts. The seal is compressed permanently into position by the stainless steel body itself. The only way that joint fails is if the seal material degrades, and EPDM is rated for decades of continuous contact with potable water. In a SharkBite fitting, you've got teeth that are spring-loaded against the pipe, a collet under tension, and an O-ring that's being compressed by the geometry of the fitting, but is not mechanically locked the way a ProPress seal is. Now listen, does that mean SharkBite fittings fall apart? No. They don't. 25-year warranty, millions of them installed, and the vast majority perform exactly as advertised. But here's the thing my Uncle Ray would have said. There's a difference between something that works and something you'd bet your finished basement ceiling on. Over decades, that O-ring inside a push-fit fitting is subject to micro-movements from water hammer, thermal expansion and contraction of the pipe, and the slow, inevitable aging of rubber. Will it fail in year 5? Almost certainly not. Year 15? Probably not. Year 30? That's where the honest answer gets uncomfortable because nobody really knows yet. Push-fit technology hasn't been in widespread residential use long enough for us to have 30 and 40-year failure data the way we do with sweated copper. ProPress has a longer track record in commercial settings, and the mechanical crimp gives it an engineering advantage that I can't argue with. I've seen sweated joints from the 1950s still holding perfectly. I trust a ProPress crimp the same way I trust a sweated joint. I trust a SharkBite fitting for what it is, which is a very good connection that I want to be able to reach if I ever need to. And that brings us to the real practical question. Where does each fitting actually belong in your house? This is where the debate stops being theoretical and starts being useful. ProPress belongs anywhere you'd put a sweated copper joint, behind walls, under slabs, in ceiling cavities, in mechanical rooms. Anywhere the connection is going to be concealed, and you never want to think about it again. If you're running new supply lines through your house and you own or have access to a press tool, ProPress is the professional choice for permanent, concealed work. SharkBite belongs in accessible locations, under sinks, at water heater connections, at shutoff valves, in utility rooms, in exposed basement piping, anywhere you can see the fitting and reach it if you ever need to. It's also the perfect emergency repair fitting. Pipe bursts at 2 in the morning, water's everywhere, you can cut out the damaged section, deburr the pipe, and have a watertight repair in 60 seconds without any special tools. That's not a gimmick, that's genuinely valuable. I keep 3 or 4 SharkBite couplings in my toolbox at all times for exactly that reason. Now here's where I'll give you a strong opinion. I would not bury a SharkBite fitting inside a finished wall or ceiling if I had any other option. Can you do it? Yes, it's code approved. Would I do it in my own house? Between you and me, no. Not because I think it's going to fail next year, but because I don't want to open up drywall in 10 or 15 years to find out. If you're doing accessible repairs, SharkBite is a perfectly legitimate choice. If you're doing permanent, concealed work, sweat it or press it. Let's talk money, because this matters. A single SharkBite half-inch coupling runs about $5 to $8 at most hardware stores. A 3/4 inch might be $10 to $12. That sounds expensive compared to a copper sweat coupling, which is under $1. But remember, SharkBite requires zero additional equipment. No torch, no flux, no solder, no sandpaper. You buy the fitting, push it on, done. A ProPress fitting in the same sizes runs about the same per fitting, roughly $5 to $12 depending on size and type. But here's the catch. The press tool itself costs between $1,000 and $2,500 for a quality unit with a jaw set. That's a serious investment. If you're a professional plumber doing 10 jobs a week, it pays for itself in a month. If you're a homeowner doing one bathroom remodel, it's hard to justify unless you rent one. Most tool rental shops carry them for around $50 to $75 a day. If you're doing a bigger project with a lot of connections, renting a press tool for a day and buying ProPress fittings is genuinely cost competitive with buying a torch kit and learning to solder. For comparison, a basic soldering setup, torch, solder, flux, sandpaper, runs about $20 to $40, and the fittings themselves are the cheapest option per joint. But soldering takes practice, takes time, and takes an open flame, which not everybody is comfortable with, and which isn't allowed in some situations. Now, I need to talk about safety boundaries, and I need you to take this part seriously. Neither standard SharkBite fittings nor standard ProPress fittings are approved for gas lines. I'll say that again. Do not use a standard SharkBite or standard ProPress fitting on a natural gas or propane line. There are specific gas-rated versions of both systems, but they are separate product lines with different seals and different certifications. If you use a water-rated fitting on a gas line, you are putting your family at risk. Don't do it. Don't let anybody tell you different. Beyond gas safety, there are 2 prep steps that are non-negotiable for both systems. First, every pipe must be cut square, not close to square, square. A crooked cut means the seal doesn't seat evenly, and that's a leak waiting to happen. Use a tubing cutter, not a hacksaw. Second, every cut end must be deburred inside and out. That little ridge of metal left behind after cutting will slice right through an O-ring or sealing element. Take 15 seconds with a deburring tool or a piece of sandpaper and clean that edge up. And for SharkBite specifically, you must mark the insertion depth on the pipe before you push the fitting on. Use a permanent marker or a SharkBite depth gauge. Half-inch pipe gets a mark 1 inch from the end. 3/4 inch gets a mark 1 and 1/8 inches from the end. Push the fitting on until that mark disappears. If you can still see your mark, the pipe isn't fully seated and you will get a leak. Let's talk about the most common mistakes I see with both of these fittings and how to handle them. The number 1 SharkBite failure is incomplete insertion. The pipe didn't go all the way in, the O-ring is only partially compressed, and it seeps. The fix is simple. Use the disconnect clip to pull the fitting off, check your insertion depth mark, and push it back on until the mark is flush with the fitting body. The second most common problem is putting a SharkBite on pipe that wasn't deburred. That sharp edge nicks the O-ring, and you get a slow drip that might not show up for a day or two. If you see a weep after a day, pull the fitting, inspect the O-ring for cuts. Replace the fitting if the O-ring is damaged, and deburr the pipe properly this time. Third, I see people reuse SharkBite fittings after removing them. The manufacturer says you can reuse them, and technically the teeth and O-ring can handle a few cycles, but I don't recommend it on a permanent connection. A new fitting is $5. Your peace of mind is worth $5. For ProPress, the most common mistake is an incomplete press. The tool didn't fully cycle, the crimp isn't complete, and you've got a fitting that looks pressed but isn't fully sealed. Always make sure your tool battery is fully charged before you start, and watch for the jaws to complete their full rotation. If a fitting looks uneven or the crimp ring isn't uniformly compressed all the way around, cut it out and redo it. You cannot repress a fitting. Finally, with both systems, not cleaning the pipe is a killer. Oxidation, dirt, grease, any contamination on the outside of the pipe where the seal sits will compromise the connection. Wipe it down with a clean rag at minimum. Emery cloth for anything with visible corrosion. All right, here's that bonus tip I promised you. This is something I started doing about 15 years ago, and it's saved me from mystery leaks more times than I can count. After you make any push-fit connection, before you turn the water back on, grab the pipe about 6 inches back from the fitting and give it a firm tug. Not a yank, just a solid, steady pull. If that fitting is properly seated, the pipe is not going anywhere. If it slides, even a little, the connection isn't made. Pull it off, remark, re-push. That 5-second tug test catches incomplete insertions before water pressure does. I do it on every single push-fit joint, every single time, and it's the simplest quality check you'll ever learn. That's how my Uncle Ray taught me, and that's how I'm teaching you. Before you go, if you got something out of this video, do me one last favor and hit that subscribe button. I put out new videos every week covering real-world plumbing repairs, money-saving tips, and the kind of know-how that takes years to pick up on the job. Subscribing costs you nothing, and it makes sure these videos show up in your feed when you need them. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.